Certainly you guys know what it is by now. I don't really feel like doing an introduction, so I'm not going to do one. We get it. You work on motorcycles, you do videos. I'm gay. Not like really gay, but it's like internet gay. Basically, people just make fun of you a lot. Life's hard. Also, I do want to mention that a lot of people requested the Dickhead Garage to be put into a t-shirt that is available now. Links anywhere where you guys want it. I told you guys before that this project's probably going to take a while because I don't have any particular speed or preference or anything like that. Today I just kind of want to get this thing off the ground. I also would like to take off the whole like triple tree assembly and get the controls and whatnot, and this all nice and polished up. I got a nice polishing compound, and hopefully can make it look nice and pretty today. I do have a paint color picked out for the gas tank. That'll be revealed to you guys later. I'm also guessing I'm going to drop the forks off to get rebuilt after this. Why not? Because they'll be off anyway. Really hoping that this thing would just kind of glide right underneath this, but of course it won't, because that's not how luck works. So do the old-fashioned way and use some back strength. Just pick up the whole bike, you know. Joji would be proud, or Juji would be proud. What the fuck? This bike is, oh shit. Actually, it's barely wide enough, like by the hair of its fucking teeth. So these little leathery strap looking things were actually on the bike when I got it. I never really liked them, but I never decided to take them off, and I don't know why. It's not like I was super into them, but it's probably one of those things where I was like, I don't know. It's already on the bike now, you know, might as well leave it. So I did, I always left it on there, but, oh, I remember, I did end up trying to take it off at one point or another, but I saw what it looked like underneath it, and I was like, ugh, because they're gross. But I should be able to just polish that up and make it look good. And rather than spending all this time unlacing these leather shits, I'm just gonna cut them, you know? Time to crack out the dikes, which is an offensive term. I mean, it can be used as an offensive term, believe it or not, for lesbians, but I don't mean in that term. I don't mean in a derogatory way. I just mean in, like, you know, the tools, they're snippers, which also kind of sounds sketchy. So look at that. I don't know if that's glue or just leftover garbage from the leather, but I should be able to clean that right up. It's pretty gross shit. In other news, I decided to fully commit to the whole like forging thing, and I'm gonna order a forge and like some tools and whatnot and get started on that. I should probably get some new clutch and brake cables for this thing. Something that I really never cared about all that much, because the ones I have work fine, right? Why would I need new ones? But they don't look that good. Take that apart. No, we'll clean that up. It's pretty grungy, you know, pretty kind of nasty. So I'll take this to the polishing wheel here in a second, get that cleaned up. This thing's really stubborn right now, probably because it's so corroded, being on the bike and whatnot, and the fact that it's also brake reservoir, or brake fluid, so it really doesn't want to break loose. So I'm thinking maybe if I clamp it down where it won't spin on me. There we go. Perfect. One turn. Should have done that from the beginning, you know, but can't fix stupid. Brake fluid's pretty nasty, so have something to catch it. Stuff is extremely corrosive. I mean, it'll wreck your paint, dude. If you have any overflow, just be careful. And to keep this one from spitting and sputtering all over the place, I'm basically just gonna block it off with a bolt and a nut. And that'll keep brake fluid from leaking out all over the place for the most part. And I'm also doing the same to the actual reservoir itself. Just gonna block it off with a bolt so it doesn't leak any fluid or whatnot in there and doesn't get any dirt in here. Now remember to clean, if you're gonna do this, clean your bolt or make sure that the bolt is already clean, because you don't want dirt and grime and stuff to get in here, because that'll completely mess up your front brakes. I've got that in there pretty good. The bolt's clean, and that way the fluid can't leak out or nothing can get in. So next I'm actually gonna drop the front wheel and forks. All I gotta do is loosen here. Should come, the whole thing should just pop right out. Actually, scratch that. I think what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna take this headlight off because there's some wires and stuff in it, and if I drop it, it might yank the wires out. So ignore what I just said. 2 bolts here, 2 bolts here. I am being a little bit more organized with this one. Yeah. When I did the shadow, I just kind of took everything apart and threw it in one big dish. I'm not gonna try to do that with this one. Now you also want to be very careful with this. If it's anything like the shadow, there goes a bolt. If it's anything like the shadow was, there was some sort of rubber mounting system in here that got lost that I had to replace. And there is. Let's see. This right here is put in place so that basically, more or less, your bike vibrates when it's a motorcycle. The engine vibrates. This keeps the headlight from shaking violently. And usually finding replacement parts like this, like I had to do on the Shadow because they got lost at powder coat, these are usually like backward and hard to find for older models, like the Magna, Shadow, like the VLX series. Hard to find this shit. So just don't lose it to begin with. You'll be all right. And while I'm at it, so I remember, I'll just write headlight on the front of this. So that way I know that it's the headlight. Also, it's Expo, so it's erasable when you're done. See? Why did I plasti dip this? Stay organized. Here's the thing though, you can really screw up a bike by going all black. I mean, I don't mean screw it up. I mean, all black always looks good. And it's easy, but it's boring. Everything and anything all black is kind of boring. That's why I tried really hard not to do that with this, where it was just all black. I wanted it to be, you know, kind of, there's some offsets here, you know, there's like polished chrome or whatever, you know, like all black everything is a safe bet. All black looks cool, we get it, you know, but it's boring. Don't get me wrong, there's something really cool about an all black motorcycle, I guess, or an all black car, but there's no contrast, it's not different, you know, it's safe. And I've never really liked safe. This is gonna get tricky. I don't really want to take the headlight out because I don't really feel like digging with the adjustment, but I kind of need to make sure this ring is nice and clean and polished. So that sucks. All right, and then just one more adjustment spring. All right. Carefully remove the two. And then we can just hit this with the polishing wheel, make it nice and polishy again. And would you look at that, I found my other blinker wires inside my headlight assembly. That makes sense though. That makes sense. I think that was an attempt to hide it, to hide the poor wiring. Remember, I didn't do the wiring on this bike before. When I got it, the blinkers didn't work. I don't even know if all this stuff goes behind the headlight with this bike. I mean, it probably does. There we go. This can be painted. I'll repaint this black. And now we have the wiring for our blinkers, which is just like the Shadow, same colors and everything. And I know how to do that, so it should be pretty easy. The chances of you being a 24, not that good. Unfortunately, the 24 is the biggest ratchet that I have, but I don't have any sockets bigger than that. Actually, take off my my risers first, which are actually just bolts. If you guys don't know how these risers look, that's all they do. They clamp between the tree like that. All right, we're on a roll today. Go ahead and pull out this because this can get powder coated as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and loosen the trees up here. That way I can just slide the whole lower tree assembly down and then undo this nut. The whole thing will just flop right out. That was uncomfortably loose. Yeah, this whole part never works out the way I want it to. Okay. If only my impact wasn't fucking dead. this whole process would be a lot easier. These are pretty rusty in some tight areas. And these are pretty rusty in some tight areas. I may or may not be able to clean them up with the polishing wheel, but if not, I'll just powder coat them or sandblast them. Now, if you ever find yourself working on this particular bike or other Honda models that are similar to this little plastic bit right here that houses all your safety neutral lights and blinkers and high beam lights, like just your I don't know what else to call it, but like basically like it shows your high beam, your turn signals, and your neutral. Be very careful with this plastic bit. It's very fragile, especially if it's an older bike. It just becomes super easy to break. Now, before I remove this, I'm going to lower it back down to the ground. All right, this part is tricky. If you've never done it before, it is easy to mess up. It's important for you to remember what order they come out and how they come out, which is nice that I'm recording because I have video to like look back on. But basically, you bend this tab down here. Should be another tab on the opposing side. And if you ever forget what order it came out, don't worry. If you go to like Bike Bandit or any other of these like order by part websites, they have the exact order in an exploded view. I'll show you an example in the video right here. But it's important to remember. So this is small one first. Then you have your locking, I don't know what to call it, locking clamp, I'll call it that. Then you have another one, it's gonna be a pain in the ass. But ye is no match for my mighty channel lock pliers. See, there's just pressure on it, so it's a little harder to turn. But this one's pretty obvious on this bike because it's got the actual like cone part. This is also a video for future Dan, so he doesn't fucking forget because he's a moron. Okay, these are open bearings. So you have your top seal. Now I'm gonna start jacking it up a little bit. That'll help us get through this process a little bit. Okay, it helped a lot more than I wanted it to. Did not expect it to just break out like that. Then I have my top neck bearing and the actual bearing itself. That kind of like guides where the bearing is. And these, I remember repacking these bearings when we rebuilt it, so they actually don't look bad, but I'll probably order sealed bearings. I think you can get sealed bearings for this. Makes this process a lot easier. I was dumb and forgot to disconnect the speedometer cable. Thankfully, on this, it's just a simple Phillips. Undo it, and that shit pops literally right out. So now we should be completely independent. We can kind of roll this out of the way for a second. So now the next thing I'm going to do is basically disassemble all of this shit. There's a lot of wires, buttons, there's throttle cables in here and shit. It gets pretty awful looking. It's super intimidating at first, but it really isn't that hard once you get started. The important thing is what I would recommend people do, and what I'm gonna do, is take a photo of what each side of this looks like, so you kind of have an idea. That we don't go around losing pieces. It's very easy to do that. So I'm gonna take a photo real quick. It's one side. There we go. That way I have visual. That way I have a visual. Basically, I have a visual blueprint of what this is gonna look like, and my camera phone is pretty good, so I can zoom in. I have a good idea of what it's gonna look like. I do this for a lot of things, like especially wiring, that if I don't know how it's gonna turn out. So it's nice to have a visual, like basically copy of what you need to do. And while I'm at it, I'm also gonna do a steering for all my bolts and nuts, and I've spelled steering wrong. But now it's nice and organized. And now while you're taking it apart, it also might not be a bad idea to clean inside of here, because it gets greasy and dirty. What I'm also probably going to do is, after I get the buttons out, is I'm probably gonna put the screws back where they go. So that way, because they do vary in length a good bit. Since this one is substantially longer, I'm just gonna make sure it stays in the right place so I don't lose track of it, you know? Like a responsible adult would. Also, be very careful not to strip these out. They're very easy to strip out since these are old. Like on this bike, they're old. So they've been in there for a while, and they're soft metal. So what I've always found is getting a really good amount of force behind it and then getting it started is a good way to ensure that these little things will not strip out. And then I'm just gonna put it all back where it belongs. And this doesn't matter since it's not getting powder coated or anything like that. If these were getting powder coated, I'd probably leave them out and just do my best to remember where I put them. But since they're not, and I'm just polishing them up, it's cool to just leave them in. Or you could just always do the responsible thing and cover the inside of it with that like powder coating tape so it doesn't get dirty. Or you just put the screws all the way in and then break them loose again after powder coat. You know, it's whatever you want. Funny story, the first time I ever did this, I dismantled all of the buttons and whatnot and went to go reassemble it, and I didn't organize my shit very well, and I thought someone like stole all my buttons. I was like, where'd all my buttons go? Or I thought I lost them. I was like, great, I have to order all new buttons. But then I remembered that since it's wiring, they're attached to wires, they stay attached to the freaking bike. And I was looking on the ground for like my buttons. I was like, where are my buttons? Because I was dumb. You know, at first taking apart the controls can look really kind of overwhelming. There's a lot to it. But after you do it once or watch someone do it, it's really not that bad. We've got the last one right here, which takes up the most space. There you go. Now these are all ready to get cleaned up. So I'm just gonna finish disassembling these. So I've got a new polishing wheel that I'm gonna throw on my bench grinder thing, whatever you want to call it. It's not really a bench grinder as much as it is like a table saw thing. The sound's probably going to get pretty dickered here because that gets kind of loud, but I will go over the polishing compounds first. So this is a 4-piece polishing compound kit. I've never actually used these ones before, but I think the way it goes from black, brown, white, red, black being the lowest grit, red being the highest grit, meaning that this is going to give you more polish. I've only used, this is the polishing compound that I normally use before. I want to try the red out first before we get crazy, but this is what I'm used to. So like I said, I think that the red is the equivalent of the 5 here. Extremely fine coloring compound used for soft metals such as gold, silver, plate, and more. Or, you know, we'll even start at the brown. We'll start at the brown first, and if I don't like this stuff, I'll go back to what I know. But this had high reviews on the internet, so basically, turn it on, get a nice color going on here. By the way, wear eye protection. It smells like a Coca-Cola flavored candy. I don't know if the camera can pick up the difference here. Jeez, what a mess. So here's what I have finished. It's actually turning out really good. These still need to be touched up a little bit. Then I tested out to see what kind of finish I could get on this, because there's some rusty bits in here, and this is going to clean up pretty nice, but it looks like there's like some sort of coating that's peeling or something that is going to be awesome to take care of. But yeah, it's taking up a little bit more time than I really wanted it to. So I'm going to end this shit right here for the next episode. Because I got another project I need to work on over there for a different video. So, yeah, anyway, we will continue working on the Magna soon.